personal reading and watching on a daily basis, which he would never do. Whether he was reading the mail through the sight of kids going down the street, or whether he was making sure that groceries were delivered to whether he was simply saving for a loyal customer behind the counter so that they buy. Charlie pretty much a life well with people. And it's not great to a blizzard or a hurricane. Charlie's common presence, sacrifice, generosity, were nothing short of everything. However, when I truly think of Charlie, I think of how he was as a child. From the first time a child walked or was carried into Charlie's store, he poured along with us, wonderful lots of life back. He must know how special they were to him. And then he believed in them and always saw the best in them. And in turn, they became, for them, he became another adult, like a parent or a grandparent who they wanted to be so much. And so when that great report card came, that home run was hit, or that goal was scored, their reward, their prize was not just the popsicle or the candy bar that Charlie had promised. Their prize was the joy of letting Charlie know that his faith was rewarded. Before I it's been a great pleasure to work on this committee, and I think that one of the reasons for that is that at our root, each one of us are looking to instill that little kid so desperately to please God. I thank him for letting that.
Yeah.
Before I turn things over to my co-chair, Frank Rowland, I'd like to, one person I
traffic light at the intersection.
Rita is the current owner of Charlie's store, and she's been gracious from the beginning and agreed to every single request that the group has made, from installation of events to helping advertise the event, etc. And without her gracious contributions and cooperation, Congress and the process. I'd like to turn things back over to Frank Rowland. Next to that of Charlie and his beloved brother Ben. Charlie's name is principally as fast synonymous as any other with Charlie's store. He was not only Charlie's first employee, he was also a cherished friend to Charlie and as a Nichols family. He also was a constant contributor throughout the years and advisor to the store, and just another reason why, however, irrespective of however long you left West Roxbury, the first college you felt like they come back. It's been my great pleasure to work on this project with him. To honor him with both the board. Frank.
Before we start, what I'd like to do is to acknowledge the Nichols family. We would ask for the Nichols family to please stand so that we can acknowledge you, please. Charlie's Bench and the idea for the project through a small group of neighbors who are on social media called West Roxbury Chronicles. On this site, Charlie's name came up and how he had influenced each of us when we were young children growing up. The thought came that there should be a way to mark and remember Charlie's name. The Charlie's Bench plaque on the sign. Many of you might remember that there used to be old milk crates outside the store. Well, when children bought their candy and their drinks, and mostly sweets, they would go out, turn the milk crates over, sit down, and eat those and drink the candy. It's a very big party. Everyone's goal going to the store. From that idea, we thought the bench was good. Starting in March, the planning began. I'd like to thank our committee members, Sarah White, Laurie Berg, Jim Martin, Luke Borum, and 2 other members who are here today, Brian Driscoll from California and Kevin Monahan from Minnesota. Every project needs a leader, and we were fortunate to have a leader in Sarah White. Sarah was the one who coordinated, kept us going, and patient, moving the project along. So Sarah, many thanks. I'm not sure where you are, but thanks. Putting the bench together was a project in itself. It had many parts and pieces, like those tricycles that you fathers used to put in on Christmas morning an hour before. Anyway, if you know what I mean. Well, we had the bench, and we had a gentleman from Willow Street, Marvin Davinsky, who was so kind to put it together. He put the plaque in the back of the bench. That was not easy to do. He transported the bench up on the dolly from my house all the way up, as if we were stealing the bench from someone's house. Marvin put it on the side of the sewer with the help of Frida Patel, and they installed it on Thursday around 2 o'clock. And later today, you'll see it. It was just a wonderful thing. So Marvin, wherever you are, many thanks. And we had a couple of helpers this morning. Steve's children, Bob and Sean, helped us set up a little bit, so we want to thank them. And also, we want to thank Bill Downey and Ian Clay. And Bill Downey is very nice to offer himself for the bathroom. And also down there available too, just in case. At this moment, I'd like to talk about Charlie. But first, we have to ask if he'll forgive us. Because Charlie was never a man who looked for attention or the limelight. That was not what he wanted. He wanted to be a good person, a good provider, and a good friend to all. So Charlie, I know you're looking at us. Please forgive everyone here on Charlie's father and mother were James and Philomena Nichols. Charlie's father had immigrated from Albania for America, met his wife, and started a family. Charlie was born August 9th, 1934. 28. Sorry, Charlie. And a few years later, his brother Teddy arrived. The family grew up in Mattapan, and the boys attended Hyde Park High School. Charlie was a very lucky person from the beginning, for he met his best friend and lifelong companion and his brother Teddy Nichols. Teddy and Charlie gave the meaning of what brothers should be, devoted to each other. I don't think a day went by that they did not see or talk with each other for their entire life. And I know how this has affected Teddy and his family too, while the Nichols family. Charlie's father was a successful merchant, and with his help, Charlie bought the Pioneer store at 604 Wells Street in 1947. Charlie was the second owner of the store, the first being Mr. Peacock. And Mr. Peacock, who lived on Peacock Lane on Maple Street, was an older person who spoke few words. He was kind and wished Charlie well. As Mr. Peacock said to the young Charlie, "On taking over the store, Charlie, I'll stay with you for a week to introduce you to the neighbors." So both of them, the older Mr. Peacock and the young Charlie, spent the week together and was introduced to local neighbors. Their combined legacy spanned over 80 years, for which Charlie was over 50 years at the store. Charlie met Loretta Blake, who soon became Loretta Nichols, and they started a family in Rossville. The location was only 3 miles from the store. The first child was Jean, then Julie, and finally Robert. The family by then had outgrown their apartment in Rossville, and they needed a larger home. They found a comfortable house in Dedham, where they made their home and where their children went to the nearby schools. Back at the store, Charlie was an instant hit with the neighbors, and he quickly became part of the neighborhood. He made friends easily and was helpful on many occasions, extending credit to those who ran shop during the week. His store carried everything, and people were amazed that he had what they wanted. Charlie's customers became his friends. Regular customers of Charlie's in different times. First of all, there was the morning people. They would be there from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9, and they were on their way to work, school, and then the morning crowd ended with retired people who would buy a paper, milk, eggs, discuss and solve world events. And then at noon, we had the landscapers and tradespeople who would come to Charlie. Charlie made great ham and cheese sandwiches, but his bologna and cheese you couldn't beat. The best sandwiches. At 2 o'clock, Charlie would begin seeing the children coming home from school with pennies and nickels. They would buy tonic, chips, and penny candy. That was when penny candy was penny candy. The last group of people were the business people coming home from work, some picking up the late paper to see how the stock market was doing, stop for a drink or a snack. Charlie was an easy person to speak to, and many a time he was the company ear for those suffering from everyday problems at home or work. What you confided to Charlie stayed with Charlie. He was a man to be trusted. Charlie had few rules in the store, but he did have two, and these two he lived by. The first was religion. He never brought it up. He never got into in-depth conversation. He respected all the religions and felt it was everyone's own personal business for their own decision. Now, the second rule was for our politician friends, and I'd like to thank all the politicians who have come here today to honor Charlie, and I'll appreciate that. The second rule was politicians. He never endorsed any person, but he liked many of the people that came in to visit with him. No political sign was ever up on the store. People might discuss this politician or that one, but he would listen but not discuss. However, there was one exception. No one could ever, and I mean ever, say anything bad about Mayor Kevin White. Charlie just did not stand for it. Charlie remembered Kevin White growing up on a nearby street, and as far as he felt, he was the best mayor of Boston. Even for Mayor White, there was no political sign on his store. Once again, he felt it was a personal decision for each person to make. At times, one of our neighbors, who was attended a lot of social functions in Boston, told Charlie, I'm going to this function, and I think Mayor Kevin White's going to be there. So Charlie said, well, listen, I want to give you something. So he got a little brown bag that Charlie used to have for penny candy, and he put in malted milk balls. And he said, when you see Kevin, give this to him. Well, this gentleman saw Mayor White at the event. He goes up to him with a little brown bag. He hands it to Kevin, and before he says anything, Kevin has a big smile and says, please give my best to Charlie. So Charlie was well known. The biggest discussions at the store were sports and sports. But the Red Sox and Boston College football, they were the two most talked about. Charlie's favorite Red Sox player by far was Ted Williams, the last person to bat over 400, a record still unbroken to this day. Charlie had a favorite picture that hung behind him of Ted Williams and himself. The picture was Charlie's favorite, and the story behind it might be interesting to everyone. A customer of Charlie, a Mr. Lesberg of West Roxbury Legend, had been commissioned to paint an oil painting of Ted Williams. When he finished the painting, he did not have a car to transport the painting to Fenway Park. Charlie offered to drive him. The painting was presented to Ted Williams, and Charlie had his picture taken with him. The Ted Williams picture brought another neighbor close to Charlie. That was Wynn Green from Brayville Street, who was a Red Sox trainer for many a year. And Charlie and him would talk about Ted Williams every time he went into the store. And they had a wonderful friendship that lasted a long time. Boston College football, what can I say? In the early years, Boston College football was the main subject of Charlie in the neighborhood. With so many long-term West Roxbury alumni, when the football games began, the BC prospects for bowls was always discussed. If BC won that first football game, he would hear, looks as if we're going to a bowl this year. And if they ever strung two bowls together, means two wins together, they'd be talking about the Rose and Cotton Bowl. Charlie would on occasions push the discussion further by asking if they thought that a particular player might get the Heisman Trophy. But his kidding was all in good fun. These were the 1970s. Charlie was a wonderful man who made friends, and that was with everyone. He had great relationships with his vendors, and that came in handy during the Great Blizzard of '78. As we all know, the city and the East Coast are shut down.
Oh.
Charlie's trying to give us a message.
Wrap it up.
We know the whole city was shut down with the blizzard, with no cars, no buses, and no trains, and residents in Boston were told not to go to work. People's basic supplies were stretched thin, but Charlie helped out. He would ration food, making sure people had milk and bread, just enough to get by. Well, part of the reason that his suppliers were wonderful to him and drove out here 2 or 3 days after the blizzard to ensure Charlie's store was filled. So part of Charlie's success was the relationships with the vendors. One of Charlie's favorite days was Halloween. He would close the store and then reopen it 10 minutes later. He was famous for having wise potato chips, the only one to have them. So it was a sure bet that all the children would go to Charlie's on Halloween. He loved the costumes, the parents also having a good time. It was tradition. Charlie kept that tradition going until the day he retired. Charlie would get ready for Halloween a few days before by letting his helpers know that no eggs were being sold to young people. It was not unusual in those days to see young people get too excited on celebrating Halloween with a little mischief. One long day ago, a story something like this happened. We'll call the young man Tommy. Tommy came into the store and bought 2 dozen eggs. Charlie said, "Tommy, these are a lot of eggs. Is your mother doing baking today?" "Oh yes," Tommy said. "She's baking cookies for my whole class." Charlie could smell something not true a mile away. So Charlie said, "Let's save your mother all that time baking cookies. Why don't we purchase a package of Oreo cookies?" Tommy knew the game was up and said, "Okay." That was Charlie in his favorite hour. Charlie would hire youngsters, many here today, such as Jim Martin, myself, and others. And Charlie, much like his father, would teach by example. He would have a personal relationship with each helper. Each helper had their own personalities. Charlie liked that. Charlie was a great worker. He worked from 6:30 in the morning until 6:30 at night. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, half a day Sunday. 76 hours for 50 years. His brother Teddy, who had a demanding career of his own as a successful funeral director, would take one of his week's vacation and let Charlie have the week off. And Judy helped out too. Charlie was so proud of his children. All of his children went to Dedham High School, and they all had leadership positions for their class. All went on for further education. Jean studied, became a doctor of dentistry. Julie studied, became a dental hygienist. Robert studied and joined a financial firm in Boston. Charlie always gave his credit to Loretta. Loretta was steering the children in the right direction during the younger years and through high school and college. Charlie's long hours prevented him from many day-to-day interactions with his children. However, he made every effort to be involved when time permitted. As Charlie neared retirement, he was excited about his grandchildren, who were the apple of his eye. He realized that he was going to enjoy this thing called retirement, but he knew he was going to miss his regular customers. During the first year's retirement, Charlie, Loretta, Teddy, and Judy traveled to California a couple of times, and the pictures from those travels showed him smiling and enjoying himself. The Charlie Nichols bench that we are dedicating today in his memory is a small reminder to all that pass by or sit that this man impacted the lives of young and old. He represented stability, friendship, and always a smile in greeting people. On behalf of all of Charlie's friends who are here today, friends that were not able to make it due to distance, illness, or age, and especially those who may have passed on, we honor Charlie's memory, and a memory that will live as long as we do. At this moment, I'd like to ask Gene Nichols to come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much, Frank, and just a great recognition of Charlie to see so many people here today. And I want to thank the committee, and particularly Jimmy Martin and our old friend Frank Lovell for all the work that they did to bring everybody together today. And well, you may not know this, but Charlie wasn't even 21 years old when he bought the store here. And I don't know if you can imagine starting a business at that age.
Wow.
Most of us are a lot older when we go and do something like that. And on a day like this, Charlie loved the sun, he loved the beach. And he didn't do a day like this, we're all getting a little sun here, so I don't want to keep you much longer. But we probably get a lot of serious side about Charlie. But you may not know this, but in his teen years, he wanted to be a monk. And he actually enrolled in a monastery for a while, and they had a vow of silence. So he spent the first year, and he met with the head monk, and he told him he can only speak once a year. So at the end of the first year, he had his meeting, and of course had a chance to speak. So he said, what he could think of, hard bed. So the monk said, okay, we'll try to take care of that for you. And then another year goes by, and the second year he gets a chance to speak again, and his comments were bad food. So okay, we'll do the best we can for it. And after the third year, he had his another chance to speak, and he says, I quit. The head monk said, well, of course you quit. I expected that. All I did was complain since you got here. But anybody who really knew Charlie, he did not complain. In fact, he loved to talk. His smile, his infectious smile and laugh, you remember that? Just a way to bring people together. And he had a lot of friends. And I'm just reminded of the line in It's a Wonderful Life, where the end is, it says, no man is a failure who has friends. And Charlie was not a failure, and he had a lot of friends. And all of you people are testimony to that. So I just want to thank you on behalf of my mother and my children, and my sister and brother and their children, how much this means to us to have Charlie recognized. And the only thing that I wanted to say was that, but remember when we had our children, like his grandchildren, whenever we had the birthday party, inviting the neighborhood kids in, he was remembered there because we were always a big hit, because he always provided the penny candy for all of us. So it's great to remember a few things and see a few familiar faces today, especially Charlie Canellis and Frank, and everybody else who had such wonderful memories here in the store. So thank you all very much on behalf of
After the bench dedication, I'd like to invite everyone back here for light refreshments and sandwiches. For the children, they're welcome to go into the store after the dedication to get a popsicle on Charlie. The tickets for the popsicles, I'll have them. Jimmy, Sarah, Laurie will have them. At this point, Sarah White and Laurie Burke will lead you over to the store for official dedication. Make your way over to the store. That would be wonderful.